I would say keep them off like right until the last second.
They squeeze the last juice out of the batteries.
Yeah.
So who are we missing? Brian and
Brian Warren, and if they're in the roll call, I can read it off.
Oh, okay.
For you. I know it. I don't see a sheet up there, so I can take care of
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting for the advanced plans for Thursday, July 24th. We'll start the meeting with a roll call.
Committee Member Miles.
Present.
Committee Member Johnson.
Present.
Committee Member Nix.
Here.
Committee Member McKay.
That's me.
Here. Chair Aldrich.
He left. Here.
Okay. Chair Aldrich, I have committee members Fry and Warren absent. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda item, and it's the reason why we're here, is to have a presentation on the capital improvement program 2026 to 2035. The recommendation is that we move it to the full body MAPC. We're going to have Mr. Mark Manning, Director of Finance, to give the presentation. Sir, you're on.
Good, thank you very much.
Oh, and Mark, in order to advance the slides, just say next slide, please, and the folks in Mohammed and Tybin will take care of it.
Got it. I'm Mark Manning. I'm with the Wichita Director of Finance with the Department of Finance. Thank you for having me today. Elizabeth wanted to come. I think she's on your agenda, but she got called off on another assignment, so she asked me to come today. So I want to give you a high-level overview of our proposed capital improvement program, and hopefully you'll see that it is, in fact, aligned to the community investments plan. Next slide, please. So I'll probably keep big picture on a lot of this, but I'm happy to drill down on any level of detail on projects that you have. But I want to kind of give you a big picture overview of how we developed the CIP. It's really influenced by four things as shown on this page. The most important of which is in the upper left-hand corner, the community investments plan. That is to say, we align very specifically to maintenance as our number one priority. And you'll hear that continually, even more so this year than even years in the past. We take that very seriously. We also align to the high and very high priorities in the community investments plan. But we also obviously follow City Council policy direction. Community priorities are very important to us. Related to CIP, that's primarily what we constantly hear is street maintenance and crime prevention or public safety. So you'll see that heavily influences our CIP. And then finally, maybe a new concept in the lower left-hand corner, City of Wichita has developed a strategic plan this year. We've always had strategic planning process, but it's much more formalized and, well, I was going to say coherent. I don't know if coherent is the right word or not, but let me stick with formalized. And in fact, it's in our budget. It's in our CIP. It looks like this, nice, nice graphic and all that kind of stuff. It's very similar to what we've always wanted to do strategically, but we've developed strategies and tactics that will basically give you a roadmap for what staff is directed to accomplish by our governing body. And some of that relates to the CIP, so I'll mention that. Next slide, please. So a couple of pie charts. This shows the sources to the CIP. It's about $3 billion over 10 years. Takeaway is about a third of it is utility revenue. That's water and sewer utilities and stormwater. Very large slice for federal and state. That's about $500 million. About another $500 million from our local sales tax, which we get from the county. And then you can see the actual local funds, the GO down at the bottom, that's about $380 million. So a little bit more than a tenth of our CIP is actually local tax dollars. Next slide. This shows you the uses of our CIP. Very similar. Obviously, if we have 800 and some million on utility revenue, we're going to have 800 and some million on utility projects. Again, most of that is water and sewer. You can see 300 and some million on freeways. Most of that is state funding flowing to us, primarily on Kellogg. We spend a lot of money on streets. I mentioned streets are important. I'll talk about some subsets of that, but we've got about $500 million in for streets. I mentioned public safety. We have about $200 million, most of which is local funds for public safety. Those are two areas you can see direct linkages to the city's strategic plan. Again, public safety isn't as highly thought of in the community investments plan. I think it's just in the middle category, so it doesn't align as well, but it's very important to us strategically. Next slide, please. So here's the most important slide probably. This shows the analysis of our capital improvement plan related to the overall spending priorities. You can see close to half is in the maintain category, and that's up slightly from last year. Last year, I think it was 45.4%, somewhere in that ballpark. So all these categories are fairly similar to last year. But let me tell you a couple things that skews us a little bit. We have $400 million in our CIP for a convention center. We do not have $400 of funding for a convention center. We put it in there as a discussion item. We've done that for the last 3 or 4 years. That obviously skews the denominator here, which makes the ratio of maintenance a lot smaller. Two other big things are freeways and special assessment projects. In this measure, we penalize for those since neither of those are considered maintenance. So I guess my point is, of our $3 billion, well over $1 billion of it is the three things I just mentioned: freeways, special assessments, and Century 2. So that means our denominator is really about 33% higher if you extract those. So point is, maintenance is very, very, very important to us. I'd also point out to you, which may not be relevant to you, but it's very relevant to us, the portion of our local funds spent on maintenance is significantly higher than 46%, which I think should show the commitment of us. That's how we're spending our own money, us being the city. Our property tax money and our local sales tax money, that is proportionally going a lot heavier into maintenance in the other categories. So again, we take that very seriously. If you paid attention to any of our budget hearings, you probably heard the mayor say that constantly. And she's obviously our leader, and that's permeated throughout our organization. So next slide, please. So just to give some examples, again, we got about 30 million in GO funding for building maintenance. That's for all the buildings we maintain. We do have about 43 million in transit guest tax funding. That is for cultural facilities owned by the city. Most of that's Century 2, but think Art Museum, Historical Museum, Kansas Aviation Museum, Mid-American All-Indian Center Museum, and I think I'm forgetting one other. But we have a lot of transient guest tax invested in those facilities, which we own. Street maintenance, actually, I should be 194.5 million. Apologize for that. Again, that's all local funds. $200 million on street maintenance, and we actually have another 20 million in concrete street maintenance. We differentiate the two because we're going to target that towards residential areas. A lot of our older residential areas were built in the 50s and the 60s with concrete streets like they used to do it. Well, those concrete streets now are 50 and 60 years old. We've kind of skipped over those because they're very expensive to fix, and we've tried to allocate our maintenance dollars to get the most good possible, which basically means repairing asphalt streets. But we've also recognized that some of these concrete streets are in very poor shape, so we allocated a specific $20 million to address those. So, and then we have a little bit of dirt street paving. You may recall we included that in the past, and we kind of curtailed that program just to focus around schools. But point is, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of $225 million for street maintenance in our CIP, and that is all our money. So that should give you an indication how importantly we take maintenance. A lot of utility funding is maintenance, not all, but again, that's $900 million. Vast majority of that is for maintaining our water and sewer infrastructure. Okay, next slide. I will point out, and I think I've mentioned most of these already, some of the expansion and enhancement projects. We do have some in there. We think that's important. Freeways is considered an enhancement and expansion. Again, the vast majority of that is state money. We've got about $14 million in freeways on grant matches. That is East Kellogg going out to the county line primarily. and a little bit on a Kellogg project, I think at Ridge Road that we have planned in the out years. I mentioned our convention center. Again, we just continually plug that in there as a placeholder, a discussion stimulator. So that is in there, but again, there's no funding identified for that. Special assessments, I mentioned, we have a very aggressive special assessment program. Again, assess to property owners. And then finally, a new item, we included $20 million for a sports complex at what we call Grove Park, or technically it's Dr. Glenn Dye Park up in northeast Wichita. Again, we're looking to identify the $20 million in funding, but that is something that we have put in, and that is considered an expansion project. We have just a little bit of local money in for planning, but if we are able to construct that, that will be constructed primarily with other funding, i.e. donations and things of that nature. Okay, next slide. So let's look at how the CIP is prioritized based on the spending area. Again, you can see about 63% of it is in high and very high. And that's very consistent with last year. Last year, I think it was about 62%, if I remember correctly. And again, you're seeing the highways. We have a lot of freeway money in. That's considered low to medium priority in the community investments plan. You can also see arts and culture. That's where you're seeing the influence of our $400 million for Century 2, which, like I pointed out redundantly, I guess, is probably not realistic. So in effect, we get penalized for those two areas on this slide. But still, even with that, we still have about 65% of the CIP allocated to high and very high areas of the community investments plan. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I mentioned we have our city strategic plan, ultra high level. You can read through it at your leisure. Some of the things that we want to accomplish are we want fiscal sustainability. We want timely emergency response. We want a vibrant and cultural artistic experience. We consider that actually to align to our economic development pillar. And we want to address maintenance and infrastructure. So those are all strategies and tactics that we have aligned to our pillars. Our pillars, by the way, we want to keep you safe. We want to grow our economy. We want to invest in our infrastructure. And we want to have a livable community. And we want to do all that by being a well-run organization. Those are our very high-level pillars. Then we have strategies and tactics below that at a much more detailed level. But again, these are our strategies and tactics that I think align to the CIP. And I'll show you some projects that, next slide, that kind of show you that. Keep you safe, improve response time. We've got 2 more police stations. We already have 2 under construction. One is open, obviously, Patrol East. With Patrol West is nearing construction, and then we have the other 2 police stations that we'll build in the CIP. We have up to 9 fire stations planned. Those are moving a little slower than we would like, but again, we do that for 2 reasons. One, because we need to, I would call it a maintenance project. A lot of our fire stations are older, a lot are newer, some are older. So we're going to replace older fire stations, but we're also going to do it strategically because we typically relocate our stations based on the growth of the city in order to minimize response time system-wide. So we really accomplish 2 things with both of those fire and police station projects. Very aggressive on fire apparatus maintenance or fire apparatus replacement, which I would consider maintaining our asset. We're going to spend $45 million on fire trucks over the next 10 years. Fire trucks are extremely expensive, if you don't know, very expensive. We also included a police training center. Chief Sullivan, this was a big priority of his. We have a police training center, as you know, at Wichita State. This would be more of a tactical police training center to focus on some of the more tactical aspects of their job, not the routine recruit training, but more higher level tactical type training. It is in the out years, so it's still a ways away, but we have included that. Okay, next slide. Let's talk about some maintenance projects, or we align those to our dependable infrastructure pillar. I talked about a lot of these, so I won't go into detail. Again, a lot of money on city facility maintenance. We do have some bridge and rehab money. I think we have about $10 million there in local funds. K96 is an expansion project. I mentioned that. I mentioned 3 specific streets, mainly because these are enormously expensive streets. We have 13th Street out west, 21st Street, and then Maple is very expensive because there's a lot of stormwater work on that. And then finally, we continue to invest in our downtown area. We think that is very important. So there's a lot of street projects, but those are three that I would highlight for you. We spend a lot of money on maintenance of our airport pavement, our runways. A lot of that's federally funded. We also spend $40 million on replacing our heavy equipment. Again, maintaining our fleet there. Think dump trucks, bulldozers, road graders, specialized stormwater, drain cleaner trucks, all those kind of things. Same thing on buses. We do that. And finally, a lot of our water and sewer CIP is related to maintaining our infrastructure. Next slide, please. Now, park projects. Let me take a second on park. As you may know, we are in the process of identifying a consultant to help us complete a master plan for park. So our strategy this year in park was we have very few enhance or expand projects other than the Glen Dye Park that I mentioned earlier. We focused most of our money on maintaining our park system for two reasons. One, maintenance is very important to us. But secondly, until we go through the master planning process, we didn't want to layer on money for new park projects, pending the completion of our master plan. So you'll see most of park tilted towards maintenance of our existing assets. And finally, I mentioned cultural facilities, again, about $43 million. That's mostly transient guest tax funding. A lot of that steered towards Century 2. Okay, next slide. Here's our calendar. Obviously, we're on July 24th, and I'm with my favorite group, which is you guys. August 7th, we'll go to another group, which is pretty high on the favorite list. That's City Council. That's our evening meeting. We have that in the afternoon, about 6 o'clock, and we do that intentionally so that we can attract residents who can't otherwise come during the day. I'll be back. I'll see you again, or Elizabeth will see you, one of the two of us, on August 14th, in which we'll present to the entire MABPC. And then we have another public hearing, but actually August 26th is the day that the City Council will adopt the CIP, hopefully with your endorsement that it is aligned to the Community Investments Plan. Next slide. Oh, I guess that was my last slide. Sorry, I did not realize that. Again, in conclusion, CIP is aligned to the Community Investment Plan. We take that super seriously. It's also aligned to our strategic plan, which is a little bit of a new concept, but we take that very seriously too. It's designed to be financially viable. We'll incur some debt, but not too much debt. And that's about all I have to say, I guess. So happy to respond to any questions you have.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Does any of the commissioners have any questions?
We're going to get a copy of what he just told us before we.
Yeah, we can provide a copy of the presentation, and then we also have, as part of your packet, we have the aggregated CIP investment table. So we can certainly provide you with a packet.
It is available online as well, or I could give you some copies if you want a few copies. I didn't bring it with me, but I can send some over.
Okay.
So what we can do is, Justin, maybe you can send out a link to just in an email to everyone so that it'll take you to the page where you can go through the actual CIP document and see the specific line items. Yeah, we can print out a hard copy for you if you'd like that too.
Do you need a motion?
We will be needing a motion to see if this is in line with
Community Investments Plan.
I do have a question just out of curiosity. How are the priorities determined? Which is the highest and which is the lowest priorities?
You mean between categories or between projects within a category, or?
Just whether it's categories of projects or whatever. I mean, I know once you have your projects and things break down from that.
No, great question. The answer is lots of different ways, but the primary answer is how it aligns to our strategic plan and whether it aligns to your comprehensive investment plan, which is to say, if it's a maintenance project, it's going to be ranked higher in our priority scale. If it is a project that's going to keep you safe, project's going to grow our economy, or project's going to be living well, it's going to rank higher. Now, most of those are living well. There aren't too many. Economic development, there aren't a lot. Mainly it's public safety and it's infrastructure. Those are going to rank it higher. And then there's a vast variety of technical aspects. You know, we have a lot of engineers. They analyze all the technical aspects of our streets. So if they determine a street's deficient, that it's going to increase the priority. We also love leveraged projects. If we have a project that's leveraged with state or federal dollars, it's going to be a higher priority. Things of that nature, if that answers your question.
When we have situations that we're seeing throughout the city pertaining to the homeless, for example, and stuff, where do those dollars come from as far as in the CIP?
For the homeless shelters, a vast majority of that was federally funded. The MAC, we used ARPA for a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Does anybody else have any? Yes, Commissioner McKay?
We just had recently a neighborhood plan, and in the plan, in my personal opinion, they went really over the baseline as far as how to repair the streets, and a lot of those streets are brick. In their deal, they wanted the brick replaced and
Take out the concrete patch.
and then going, yeah. And I guess that could create a problem within itself because it's a pretty vast area. And so I don't know how a prioritized situation would be like that. Would it be a special type situation where they ask for it, it'd be advanced, then they pay for it out of specials, or what?
I think there's a couple of things on it too. Is number one, first question that came to mind for me is whether it would come out of the operating budget for street maintenance or whether it would come out of the CIP. And Mark, I guess in a little bit I'll turn it over to you so you can do that. But I think one way is, so if it's a small patch and it's an area that they're working on anyway, there could be an incremental cost above just putting in back concrete, right, and putting in the bricks. That's one thing, and that's a small scale issue. But a larger scale would be if they wanted to come in and do a larger area, like say multiple blocks at once, and then replace the bricks in those. And I think that would be something that would trigger a CIP project, but I'm not sure about the smaller patches.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The vast majority of those projects are just going to be funded in the operating budget for public works. So, and I do know, I mean, I'm not an engineer, and who knows how they decide. But having said that, I do know that they figured out that those brick areas are very difficult for us to maintain. And John, I don't know if this is good or bad for you, but I think a lot of times they're converting those to concrete that's kind of molded to look like bricks, but really isn't bricks, and they paint them red so they look like bricks, but it's much easier for us to maintain.
I'm not concerned about as far as how the CIP, I just can see these people in bulk coming and saying, well, they got theirs done, why can't we get ours done? And they didn't have to pay for it, but we have to pay for it.
Oh,
So it should be a way to get to where you, from A to Z.
And I think there's a distinction about the brick in that the areas where I've seen the most complaints are the brick crosswalks that have been put in, and you'll see pavers that have popped out and are completely missing. I think there's a distinction between those and the streets, because I'm aware of streets in College Hill that have been there for over 100 years and they haven't had any maintenance done to them. Yeah, yeah, it's a different size, and also I think the speeds that you're talking about on College Hill streets are generally lower than what you see at these intersections. The other thing too is you don't have that turning movement as much. If you'll notice, it's where the hot tires are grinding these things that you're going to see a lot of them that pop out. So there's a lot of variables. I think in the plan, we can go back to that at some point, but I think the recommendation is where feasible. I think there's some language to kind of moderate it. But if the neighborhood ever did want to do a larger project, it would be a competitive process for them to try and convince and request that it should be included as part of the CIP, and that's competitive with all the other projects.
That's my question, the process that we have to go through to get from one to the other.
Yeah, I think what Scott's told you is accurate. And a lot of times we do use neighborhood plans to guide what is included in our CIP. I'm not aware of this one in particular, and I don't remember a discussion of it this time, but certainly it's something that should come up next year most likely.
Sorry, this is a really important topic though, because it's an example of how a neighborhood plan can translate into projects to be included in one of the most important documents that's produced on an annual basis by the city, which is how are we going to program our money?
Right.
And you got the budget and you got the CIP. So in the plan, there are recommendations about implementation. Justin and the advanced plans crew will do a survey to communicate to the department directors about here's what's in the plan. What are you going to do? What do you plan on doing this year in order to help implement it? This is one of those things. It will be interesting to see if Public Works submits it as a project for the CIP or for the operating budget. We'll see. The other way that it could come forward is that the neighborhood association talks to the elected official, one or more elected officials, and gets them to propose it. Or a third way is that hopefully, I don't know that we'll get there quite yet, but hopefully maybe next year, early part, there's an opportunity for departments to submit projects. And so we would come to you and with a list of projects, and we would look for your recommendations, your ideas. The other way, there's multiple ways to get things done, is that an advisory board can submit recommendations to the city council about what should be included. So there are multiple ways for projects to come forward into the hopper for a consideration. But again, they're competing with a whole list of so many more projects than ever really make it into it.
And having said that, if I can tie that to the chairman's question of a couple minutes ago, we love plans. We love basing the CIP on plans. Our strategic plan, the community investments plan, neighborhood plans, that elevates the priority typically of projects. So everything he said is 100% accurate. Next year, well, I don't want to give him a big head. I'm going to say 98% accurate. I don't want him to, but that's how the process should work. Next year, the neighborhood plan should translate into advocacy from some group, Public Works, the council member, neighborhoods, whomever, should reach the committee, and the committee likely would be more favorably predisposed to include something because it would be based on a plan.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. So I just want to say kudos for putting this together and staying within where you balance things out. So I know when we developed the comp plan, maintaining and replacing what we currently had was huge for me, because as I saw that we wanted to build a new rec center, but we hadn't maintained the rec centers that we already had, I felt like it was really important to take care of some of that, many years of deferred maintenance on whether it's the streets or the rec centers or whatever. So it's good to see that we're still incorporating some new projects, but maintaining what we already have. So thank you for your efforts in making that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to make a motion that we find the CIPs in conformance with the comprehensive plan?
Yes, I move that we recommend that the capital improvement program be presented to the full planning commission for approval as being in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
sir. We appreciate your presentation. There isn't anybody here from the public, so we're going to bypass the public comment. I do have I want to just chat a little bit about maybe having that conversation, because we have a lot of, I think there's 4 or 5 of the accessory apartments on the agenda this afternoon. And I just wanted to see about having a comment whether or not a lot of that could be made by administrative adjustments, where it wouldn't have to come to the planning commission unless there's certain issues or something like that. Matter of fact, Scott, if you could explain that a little better.
Sure. I think today's meeting at the MAPC kind of brings this to the forefront. And what the question is for you all is, just as Chairperson Aldrich has indicated, we've got a lot of accessory apartment applications that are coming forward. And it seems like the volume has continued to grow over the past 5 years. And generally, the applications are not controversial. Many of them get approved on consent. I think it's very rare that they ever get pulled and there's any kind of discussion. So part of the question that's coming up is that if they're not controversial and if our processes require them to go through this kind of a more elaborate process of coming to MAPC, should we change the process to better reflect kind of the level of controversy that we're seeing, which is very low? And so a couple of options that we've kind of bantered about and kind of discussed is we could treat them, one option would be to treat them similar to how we do the daycares and the short-term rentals in the city of Wichita, which is that we only notify the abutting property owners, and then if they don't protest, it gets approved. A second option would be to allow them by right, so long as they meet certain standards. And the standards would be something in the order of location, that they're located in the rear of the property so that they're not in front of the primary structure, so that they're not larger than the primary structure. Maybe there's a certain percentage that we shoot for of the size of the primary structure. And also that they don't, they're not so tall that they dwarf the primary structure. And so, Mr. Chair, after talking about it yesterday, I'm wondering, one option would be for us to do some research and to come up with some options and bring those to you. I think doing the research would be helpful because we could show you photos of some instances here in Wichita even where maybe the accessory apartment might not be a good fit, but it was approved under the current regulations and the process that they went through. So just maybe to give you some idea of like what could happen and what some things that we're maybe trying to avoid. And also we could do a quick scan of some other communities and see what they've got in place. But ultimately though, I think, personally, I think that accessory apartments seem to be a good fit for the community from what we've seen so far. It's a way to accommodate different needs when it comes to housing. We had the one property owner who was elderly, and I believe this was in the Benjamin Hills area, and they wanted to build an accessory apartment so that she could move into the house, her daughter could move in with her family, and then when the mother passed away, she wanted to be able to have the grandchild who had a disability to be able to live independently in the accessory apartment. And to me, that was one of the a big example of just kind of how these can help out with different housing, living needs, housing needs. So if we could, maybe a next step would be that we could come and present some options to you and also give you some examples of how accessory apartments have and have not maybe been a good fit in an area.
Mr. Hughes?
I think that's a really good idea to do the research. It seems to me, and thinking back through our accessory apartments, that in the county we have very little conversation. I mean, it's out in the county, who cares? Where it is. Large lots that you just described, less controversial. But when you get into a smaller lot in a more crowded neighborhood, let's say, and somebody wants an accessory apartment, then we have people show up. All right, so I think it, rather than just taking it on consent immediately, as Bob said, we need to do some research to see where those exceptions lie.
Well, the other thing too is that, like Benjamin Hills, they do have an HOA up there. So it would be nice that during that research on those applications, if staff can let us know that, hey, we have contacted the HOA and this is where they stand on it. Because it doesn't matter what we do here as far as approving this stuff. And if they have an active HOA, it could be against their covenants and stuff. So it'd be nice if we could have that information if it comes to us, for example. And then what would staff do if if you're just going to make it a, like an administrative adjustment type deal, an approval on that, but you find out that the HOA, for example, is opposed to it, then where does that put your decision making? Do you just go approve it and let the HOA worry about it, or?
We can certainly cover that topic as part of the research. In general, what we do is we notify the HOA and or neighborhood association, and then it's up to them to come and participate in the process. And we've seen that happen. We don't supersede the rules that the HOA has, as you've indicated. So if they do have something that prohibits these, then they may get permission from the city or the county, but if the HOA prohibits it, then it's something they'll have to work through at that level before they could proceed.
Well, what I'm looking at is that if you know that information up front, that it's prohibited, then you don't have to waste the time, the resource, the energy to go through the process. Just that, hey, if you get us something in advance that they would approve it, then we can start that process. Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
Yeah, and that can certainly be a factor for the MAPC. The difficulty we have is that we don't generally have access to whatever their covenants may be. So we depend on that HOA or to bring those forward as part of the discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
One thing that I struggle with, if something is not compatible and the planning commission doesn't want to recommend it, I think they should say that, because that eliminates a lot of controversy in the neighborhood of people having to be against their neighbor. And it takes it away from the neighbor being the bad guy.
Well, yeah, but really it boils down to whether or not there is an HOA or some protective covenant or something on that. Otherwise, it's, there's not those restrictions aren't there.
I think red flags for me are, does somebody put an accessory apartment in behind their house that they're renting out on an ongoing basis? Do they abide by all the setbacks? Because of course we've seen that over and over, like they've got an existing garage and it's now going to become an accessory apartment. Is it going to become 2 accessory apartments because of the way they've built it? I think it seems like there's a lot of ways that people try to find to skirt the rules, and that would be really my biggest concern. And especially, I'm a South Sider, so let's be creative about how we can create things in our backyards to generate income or revenue or whatever. So those would be my primary concerns, as well as people putting up an accessory apartment without getting the permits to build that or whatever. And again, we've seen some creative things over the years where this is not really going to be an accessory apartment. It's just going to be a garage with a bathroom and we've seen a lot of creative things. So those would be my concerns.
And these still have to be in conformance to Commissioner Warren.
I'd be curious, I'm not sure how far back to go, but I'd be curious to know how many of the applications that we've done by consent. We've had 50 applications over the last 2 years, and 5% were we had a hearing on, and the other 95% was consent, or was it something more like 35 to 40%? They make a difference for me how I'd vote on that.
Well, that's good information that staff can provide us.
I have one question. One thing that bothers me on conditional uses for accessory apartments is like they won't give you a plat. If you go to build something new, you got to get a building permit. You've got to have a drawing. You got to go through that process. We don't go through that process. If it's a 37 acres and they say, I want to plot it here, well, I may want to plot it over there. If some way that they could make a requirement of the location within a, certain 2 or 3 feet guideline or whatever it might be, would help everybody. Because I'm having a tough time sometimes with, we had one, 56 acres, and they're gonna put an apartment in there for their grandmother. That looked a little strange to me, but we don't have any specific place where it goes or what happens. And they might have a little more control that way if you work together with the other group to have the permits that's going to be done.
Well, Scott, you got a little bit of homework there.
This is great. This is very, very helpful. I appreciate getting all your perspectives and the questions because one thing I didn't mention, but I need to, is that the county commission has asked for a presentation on this very same topic because there is interest on the commission level there about housing. And we've seen quite a few county applications for these come up. So this will be a topic in August, somewhere around like the 12th or the 19th. So once we get that firmed up, we'll send you out some information so that you can attend in person and observe, or you can watch it online as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any additional for anything? If not, our next scheduled meeting will be Thursday, August the 14th. And everybody's welcome to attend. Now, since there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Business. Okay, we're going to do a little activity. It'll kind of get us up moving a little bit.